much for joining us. On behalf of the FPA, our thoughts are with you during this difficult time. My name is Allison. I'm with the Facial Pain Association. And I've been reading your posts on social media, and we've gotten so many emails and calls at the office. And we know that many of you are struggling, especially during this time, unable to get treatment, and you're in pain and you're scared. And we want you to know that we are open. You can call our office, you can email, and you can reach out on social media. We hope that this program and the programs like it that we are going to continue to provide will be of help and support for you. Some of our methods obviously have changed, and so that's why we're adding these digital events and these virtual programs. So please let us know if you have any requests for topics to cover. We already have 2 more Facebook Lives planned. One will be on Wednesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. And that will be on the topic of diagnosis. We are going to have 2 of our members of our medical advisory board who will answer your questions. The second one is going to be on Tuesday, May 5th at 7 p.m. And the title of that one is My Experience with Medical Marijuana. We have 2 of our we have 2 of our board of directors who are going to talk about their own personal experiences with facial pain and medical marijuana. So like I said, we're going to continue to hold these live events. We're going to continue with our webinars, and we're going to send a bi-weekly email bulletin that includes important updates about programs and information on all kinds of topics related to neuropathic facial pain. So if you are not receiving those, please email us at info@tna-support.org or call the office to make sure that you are on our email list. Please also, if you haven't already, like this page so you will receive updates about new programs coming out and links to resources. Finally, I just want to remind you all that the Facial Pain Association is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we rely upon individual donations. You can click the donate button on this page to ensure that we can continue to provide these valuable programs. So now, without further ado, I'm going to hand you off to Allie Kubik, who is one of our wonderful board directors.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for having me. As Allison said, my name is Allie Kubik. My journey with facial pain started when I was 13 years old. I was diagnosed, with bilateral facial pain. Since then, I've undergone various different surgeries and am now able to manage my pain with a low dose of medication, which I am incredibly thankful for. And I have been working with the FPA for many, many years and have learned so much. And as Allison said, I am on the board of directors for the FPA. And since this Facebook Live is about marriage, I have been married for almost 4 years now. So turn it over to Megan.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Megan Hamilton. I'm also on the board of directors of the FPA. I am associated with the FPA because my daughter, Catherine, or Katie Rose, was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia when she was 11 years old, and then soon after with geniculate neuralgia, which is the ear pain. She ran the gambit of the medications and had microvascular decompression when she was 12. That failed after 8 months dramatically, and then had another microvascular decompression when she was 13, I think. And she's now 19 years old. She has been off of medications since about 10 days after that second surgery. And it was an up and down recovery and took about 18 months after that second surgery. But she's now 19 years old, and she is an essential employee in this interesting time of life, and the only one of us in the house who's actually going out and working right now. So that's how we wound up together, and we're going to talk about our family and having a child who has TN and how we all kind of navigated that.
And
And I'm sorry, I'll pass it off to Janet.
my name is Janet Ditzler, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I specialize in trauma. I am EMDR trained, and I am also a facial pain. I had trigeminal neuralgia, was diagnosed. Took about 6 years for me to be diagnosed back. Want to say 2010 is when I had MVD, microvascular decompression surgery. So it's been almost 10 years this August that I'm pain-free. Interesting journey, and I'm delighted to be here. Talk about this and the effects that it has on the marital relationship.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, I think we all had decided that one of the things we wanted to do is to start off talking about this coronavirus experience we're all going through right now and some of the unique struggles that we know we've seen going on in the facial pain community, and how there are some unique things that are happening to our group of people, to our tribe, including, I know some people who've been in pain and wanted to go to the ER, but the last thing anybody wants to do right now is go to the ER, and kind of the added layer of fear that adds on for all of us, and the added struggle of a decision that we have to make. I think a lot of people don't quite understand that unique challenge that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, we also discussed the availability of medications. Are we able to get the medications? Are we able to have enough of a supply? What if, when I have an episode,
Mhm.
is that going to be readily available?
Right.
Janet, are you able to provide any suggestions from your professional experience for patients with facial pain during this essentially crisis time?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and I think it goes for all of us to recognize we are in unprecedented times as a whole. One of the things about a support group going through facial pain support group is I'm not alone. There are other people like me. We're similar. We have similar stories, and now we have a global epidemic, pandemic. All of us saying this is affecting all of us. So none of us are in this alone. So it's, any type of suggestions is for all of us to participate and nurture and take care and tend to our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, all of that, because it's all being impacted. So I guess to answer your question, it would be the same information for all of us to, take care of those needs, be aware of those needs, what's going on. One of the things I think is so important is, feelings. You want to get into the feelings. There are all kinds of feelings going up and down for all of us, right? Just like we were talking before we jumped on. If we watch the news too much. I was just listening to Brene Brown the other day talking about anxiety. All of us, most people, our anxiety is out the roof. So if we have anxiety anyway, when we have, I remember for me, my anxiety was, when am I going to get another attack, right? You're just kind of waiting. So I had that anxiety. Now we all are living through this anxiety of, when is this going to be over? Am I going to get sick? What if one of my loved ones gets sick? So there's so many of those questions going on, too. So one of the things is you've got to move these feelings. I got to know what I'm dealing with. I got to call them out. I got to recognize them. I'm feeling anxious. What's that like for me? Well, my heart's beating fast. Okay, what do I need to do? Well, one of the most important things is tending to myself, tending to how am I feeling. We talk over and over and over about breathing. Stopping, inhaling through the nose for a count of, 4, pausing, exhaling through the mouth. We know that if we stop and do at least 3 breaths, it changes our chemistry in our brains. takes us to a more calm place. So we want to be able to do that. Tap into the breath. Notice how my body's feeling. And then kind of, if I can name the feeling with that, that's even, that's allowing that feeling to process through my body. So looking at all of us at different phases, many times during the day, we're all having these different types of feelings. Guilt, right? I'm working. My best friend's not working. You know, someone's sick. We are all going to be impacted by somebody being sick with this disease. Well, that's anxiety. That's anxiety building enough. Megan, you're talking about your daughter. She's on the front line, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to process through some of those feelings because we are not called to live in fear. We don't want to park and stop and live in fear. The same thing with trigeminal neuralgia or facial pain. We don't want to live in fear.
I know, I don't have facial pain. That was Katie, but I'll relate this to, I have asthma that's pretty bad and a number of medications that I'm on every day for it in the midst of this pandemic, which is not fun. And I found what really helped me was to think ahead to, okay, what are the things that are going to freak me out? let's just think about it right now and kind of make a little list of things and what are the things I can do something about right now. And one of them was to contact my doctor, and I had a virtual appointment with him, holding my phone up in front of my hand, talking to him, and arranging with my insurance company to get multiple months worth of my medications up front. Because I was like, I don't want to go back out again. I want to be fully prepared. Like the medications you would normally give me for pneumonia, I want them now. And all this stuff, because I get pneumonia. I do that almost every year. So let's just do it now. And to me, that was like a level of safety, like a safety net for myself. Okay, that's something I can do to prepare myself. And one of those things that as facial pain patients that we can all do for those that we love that are dealing with it, and to kind of prepare them. Okay, what do you need ahead of time? What do you need now? And who do we know that we'll need to call, and be sure we're prepared with those things like that. What do we do instead of going to the ER?
Right. Well, I love, Allie, you had shared that you have a plan in place. You, instead of going to the ER, and again, making those provisions for yourself, to yourself.
Yeah. As I shared, I'm a person who likes to have a plan. I like to be in control of things. So this type of situation is bad in all sorts of ways. And
speaking to my heart right now.
For me, stress is one of my biggest triggers of my pain. So as much as people can tell you, don't stress, you can't do anything about it. Like, don't tell a person who's stressed to not stress. Like that just, in my own opinion, I don't think that's helpful. But I actually did get in contact with my pain management doctor locally, and he told me, he was like, do not go to the ER, because I do have times where I will end up in the ER. But we figured out a plan. Okay, if the pain is that bad, you would go to the pain center and you would get an infusion there where it's smaller people and or a smaller space and it's more controlled. So then I'm not sitting in the ER exposing myself, because that adds a whole nother layer of stress. Oh my gosh, what if I get sick? XYZ, coughing leads to more pain. So it's a vicious cycle.
So kind of going back to your original question, some of the things that you can do are exactly what you guys have mentioned. Having a plan, having plenty of medications on hand, and having an awareness of taking care of yourself, tending to yourself, knowing your triggers, opening up this like an invitation for yourself to, okay, this is what's going on. This is how I'm going to prepare for it. Now, control is an illusion for those of you that like to have that feeling of being in control, right? We worry about
my illusion from me.
We all want that safety. We want that you're safe, right? And with facial pain, we know in moments when this shows up, I don't know if I'm going to be safe. I mean, right? I mean, sometimes it's like, well, you're not going to die from this, but yet the pain is so bad sometimes that you can't help but feel that way. It's horrible. So
Mhm.
we want to be able to, that's what we're dealing with.
Mhm.
And I'm as prepared as I can, getting medical care, belonging to support groups, tapping into the FPA, for support. You're not alone. We're not alone.
Mhm.
Very helpful. I mean, that was super helpful for me, was a support group.
Yeah.
So,
I really appreciate having, my people that are the people that I can text in the middle of the day and be like, I just heard this and I'm freaking out, or, I'm not coping right now. Well, someone needs to talk me down a little bit and make me laugh about something, whatever. And it's really, really helpful.
mhm. And one of the best things that we can ask for our friends or our people is, what is that like for you, Megan? What is that like for you when you're feeling out of control
Mhm.
and you feel heard, right?
Hmm. It's more a sense of I don't have anywhere to direct this nervous energy because it's all out of control and there's nothing I can do right now. So it's just kind of rolling around inside of you. It's making your brain is kind of spinning its wheels,
Mhm.
Um, and that other person can just help center your thoughts and focus on something, talk to that one person or two people, whatever, for a few minutes and bring it all back again. And it's just a huge help. I mean, and it's nothing. It's a few minutes of trading a couple of jokes or saying, you're going to be okay. Call me later tonight and we're going to talk about this or whatever. And just that's enough to kind of bring you back to the real world where you can get traction again.
Mhm.
Megan, I think that's important, whether there's a pandemic or not a pandemic going on, having your people that you can talk to. Because from your perspective as being a mom and seeing your child in all of this pain, it you need that. You need people there that you don't have to explain. You can just
Mhm.
say it and they get it and
Yeah.
they don't even have to respond, but you just had to get it out to someone who gets it.
Yeah. We wound up with a small group of us. We called ourselves the TN Mamas because all of us had kids with TN, and we just leaned on each other more than I've ever leaned on people that I've never seen in real life before, ever, and we still text each other and reach out whenever something good or bad happens. Those are the people we reach out to. Guess what Katie did? She's a vet assistant and she's doing such and such or whatever, because those were the people that I could call and I could say, she's having the pain today. And they knew what I meant. They didn't turn it into something else. They didn't poo poo it. They didn't try to fix it. They didn't do any of that. They just understood. And it was huge, just huge.
Mhm.
You can't get through without that.
So Megan, with that group, and Katie Rose would have an episode, and you would contact this group of moms. Tell me what that common feeling. Well, what I'm after is they understand the feeling that you're feeling.
Mhm.
They may not know exactly what you're going through. However, they can understand a feeling. So if I could ask you, what would, if you float back to one of those times where Katie Rose was struggling and notice your body, as I mentioned that, you made a face, right?
Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah. I still to this day, and she's 19, okay? She's been pain-free and off meds since she was 13 and no, well, pain-free, I would say, since she was 13, 14. And to this day, if I talk about it too much, I'll still cry
Yes.
because that pain is so intense and I cannot, and probably most of you watching this, you understand because you felt it, but most of the world doesn't get it, right?
Mhm.
And to watch that happening to my child was just I cannot explain. You want to throw yourself on the fire to protect your child, and you can't. I had to lay beside her while she felt it
Yeah.
and just be with her. And it was such loss and
Mm-hmm.
horror and, uselessness. And all I could do was try to have the things that she needed and be there for her through it, and try to be the one who tried to judge the line of at what point do we stop just getting through it and go do something else, like go to the hospital or whatever, or when do we just muscle through this? And it can't be explained unless you've seen it. And that was one of the reasons those TN mamas were wonderful, because they got it. I could say, here we go. And they knew Katie's attacks would be 3 hours long, and it would just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could say, here we go, it's starting. And they would just ping me every once in a while with an encouragement, I'm still here, I'm on the other end of the phone. Just let me know if you need something,
Mm-hmm.
So you're not by yourself in it.
Mm-hmm. And when you describe that, you use words that horror, loss, right? I mean, those are deep, deep, deep feelings. These aren't feelings we feel on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. It's really, they're like trauma words, it's a traumatizing thing to go through it, I'm sure, as I watched Katie, and to watch someone that you deeply love go through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say, even being a facial pain person, I mean, fortunately, or where I'm at today, I've been pain-free for 10 years. It'll be almost 10 years. Yet, I have done EMDR on my trauma of my episodes, because that was trauma on my body and for me.
Yeah.
And doing that EMDR helped release that so that I could process through those feelings.
Yeah. You should. Can you describe to us what EMDR, what it is to do that, and what it did for you? Because I don't know a lot about it.
Okay, I'll try to do the best that I can. It sounds way more invasive than what it is, but it's research-based therapy. Stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It was named too soon, but basically it's utilizing bilateral stimulation to process through. Our bodies hold on to trauma. If it's not always, but if it's processed through, it can move through. It moves through us. But when it gets stuck in our bodies and the body holds on to it, kind of like when you mentioned going back to Katie Rose and your whole body I read your face. You felt it. It's there. It's still there. So what EMDR does is we use bilateral stimulation to process through the feeling, because your body's remembering it, so that when you look back on it, it was still horrible and awful and horrific and lost, but your body has released it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's very, I feel like it's very organic. It sounds just so much more invasive. There's an 8-step protocol. It's backed by research. We use it for PTSD. We also use it for anxiety, depression, chronic illness. I almost use it with almost all of my clients.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a way, I would highly recommend it for facial pain people, because it is effective it is trauma. Your body is going through trauma. It's trauma waiting in anticipation for the next episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to where I didn't want to leave my home.
Right. My daughter was the same way.
I've been on the board.
And she is the most gregarious, outgoing, talk to every stranger in the supermarket kind of person as a kid. And yeah, she didn't want to leave the house or talk to people because she didn't want something out there was going to trigger it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And then sometimes the medications and not being yourself on medication, and it was just a very deep struggle. So
yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that you touch on, that you got the trauma and the struggle of the facial pain, but then we also have the struggle of the medications and the treatments.
Yes.
Which are no walk in the park. and so often I think people who don't understand the condition and the medications will think, well, you went to the doctor and you have the medications now, or you had that surgery, so, you're better now. You don't realize, okay, she can't count backwards from 10 now because of the medication. Like,
Right.
it's not like it solved all the problems. Like, she's not laying in bed screaming, this is a plus, but there's these other things, and I think a lot of people don't quite understand that it's a dual-edged sword. We had a love-hate relationship with the treatment.
And it's ongoing. I mean, there are times when you find a cocktail that is working, and then all of a sudden it no longer works. And
Yeah.
that's what happened to me. Trileptal. I see where somebody had put Trileptal was wonderful. It was wonderful for me for a while, and then all of a sudden my sodium levels started getting dangerously low, dropping. And I think I went one time for about 3 weeks where my water intake was restricted to like 8 ounces a day because the trileptal was affecting my sodium.
Oh,
And
wow.
so then you have that anxiety of, okay, now what? Now what can I do? Now what's going to help? There's this ongoing,
Right.
fix.
Right.
It's a catch-22 whether you want to take the side effects or you want to deal with the pain. And
Yeah.
sometimes, or I feel like most of the time, I would choose taking the side effects. I actually went through a period where I had a really severe rash from the medication, and I got into an argument. Granted, I had a very good relationship with this doctor, but we got into an argument because I wanted to stay on the medication, but he was like, no, you can't stay on this medication. The rash will cause extreme harm to your body, but the medication helped. So I was in, I was looking at, okay, I deal with this rash or I stay out of pain. I just want to stay out of pain. Like,
Yeah. I'll take the side effects. Yeah.
yeah.
And kind of going back to that collective approach and the support group, how many people are in this? You can either do this or you have this, and neither one of them are good. You can either have the trigeminal pain or the facial pain, or you can have these horrible side effects where you're going to feel like you're completely drugged. You'll pass out at any given time. I mean, it's because for me, I did have a horrible experience with side effects that I don't know which one I would take. They were both terrible.
Right.
But
That's
again,
what we get asked sometimes, why did we move so quickly to MVD for Katie? And she was in school. She's in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade while on these medications. So we're dealing with either the pain or we're tanking your education. Like, these are our options right now. So yeah, you kind of are stuck between two really bad options, really. And that's why we pursued the surgical route. But one of the other questions, speaking as a caregiver, is for us, Katie was young enough that a lot of times these decisions fell to us. But as she got older, more and more we would try to give her the space. Okay, do you want to up your med, or do you want to leave it where it is and deal with the pain because you don't want more side effects? Like, what point are you comfortable with that? And I'm sure a lot of other caregivers have a similar struggle with the person that they love. Like, I might think one thing, but she thinks another, and having to let it be that way. It's a hard tension sometimes.
I can't imagine being the parent either in that circumstance. I mean, that had to have been, again,
It's not fun.
yeah, and being the patient, but being now the parent, just wanting a solution, just something, to do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm reading one of the questions, Adrian, where you have it's kind of circling back to the EMDR. I'm so sorry. Where you say you've never had any bilateral stimulation during EMDR. I just want to clarify that. The bilateral stimulation is if you did any type of eye movement, that is bilateral stimulation. We also use a couple of different techniques, not just the eye movement. It can be butterfly taps, tapping, tappers, or any type of left-right motion for our brain. So that's what that means. I just wanted to clarify that if I saw that on one of the questions.
Janet, back to what we were talking about before. Megan, you said that you gave your daughter the choice of whether you wanted to go up on medication or not. Something that it reminded me of, I was diagnosed in October. My mom made an appointment with a neurosurgeon the following January. I was 13 years old and terrified of surgery, to the point that I was in so much pain, I couldn't go to school, but I was terrified of surgery. So I was like, nope, not going. And she canceled the appointment because we had the conversation. This is your body. I can't force you into something that I want you to do. While I'm sure it was breaking her inside to see me screaming in pain, but I wasn't ready. I just actually had this conversation with someone yesterday that while they may really want their spouse or their child to get more help, they have to be ready. We have to respect that it's their body. While we need time, there may be times where we need that person to be like, okay, it's time to go to the ER. You've been screaming for 6 hours and your emergency meds aren't doing it, but you have to respect that it is their body. And I can at least speak from my own perspective. That was a really interesting transition with my mom, because she was my number one caregiver. And then now my husband, he's the one who will be like, okay, we're done playing the game of you can fight this out.
Right. Did you and Danny ever have a conversation specifically about, okay, here are our lines. Like, we're going to say ahead of time that if I get to this point and I'm being unreasonable, I shall give you permission to or whatever. Or where he said, at this point, I can't take it anymore. I can't watch anymore. Have you done that? Because one of the things I've been thinking about is how do we advise other people on that, to have that conversation?
We never truly had a conversation about it, but I think over the years, he's just kind of learned, unfortunately, like I have my rescue meds that I can take at home. And if I take the dosage that I need, or I can take, and it's not cutting it, we know that within 45 minutes it should be breaking the pain. And if it's not breaking the pain, it's time to get in the car and go to the hospital, because you can't just sit there. It's not going to go away. And granted, I will be the first to admit I will fight anybody, because I do not like going to the ER. I haven't had great experiences, but I will. Again, that's where the caregiver comes in, that they need to be like, I don't care how much you don't want to go, we're going. So it's that balance. Again, I just mentioned, oh, yes, we have to respect their body, but we're also, as a patient, when you're in that much pain, you're not thinking clearly, not at all. And we just talked about the medications. You have the side effects of medications that, again, you're not thinking clearly. So.
So what is that like for you, Allie, when your husband, Danny, takes over and says, okay, we're going? What does that feel like for you?
I think it's a relief that I see that I know that there's going to be help. I guess I'll be able to see an end in the tunnel, that I will be able to get a break from the pain. And it's comforting to know that, okay, this is what we're doing. And we've been through it so many times that this is just kind of routine. Not the routine, but you know what I mean? It's just kind of what happens. This is part of our life, unfortunately.
So a good question someone asked is, how has that impacted your marriage?
It's a really good question. So when I first met Danny, I was in a really good place with my pain. I was on a low dose of medication. I didn't have great experience in middle school and high school. I was in college when I met my husband, and my life was fabulous. I met this great guy, And then all of a sudden, I will never forget it. It was over Thanksgiving break. My pain came back with a vengeance, and I remember thinking, he's gonna leave, he's gonna leave, he's gonna leave. And he did not. So I'm incredibly thankful. There's different things, like, okay, we love being outside, and both of us love being outside, but okay, maybe sunny out, but it's super breezy. So guess what? We can't go outside. And he's been really, or he has been, not he has, he always has been understanding that it is what it is, and that's okay. I am who I am. And I get frustrated with myself that I can't control this, because I wish I could. I wish I could control the wind. I wish I could control the pain, but he knows, like, he'll be like, no, it's windy. Let's go inside. We're not going to go do that today, because it'll cause you more pain. So.
You know,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, you know, one of the other things from a marriage point of view with my husband and I, because we're both caregivers, but we approach this really differently. Like, we have very different personalities, right? I'm going to research it to death. I am going to read everything I can. I went to the national conference because I was determined to shake hands with the top doctors who understood this condition. And I had my list of questions when I went, and my neurosurgeon, or Katie's neurosurgeon, still teases me every time I go in about, okay, how many questions do you have today? You know, and that's me. My husband is not like that. He is much more like, well, just take each day as we can. I'll do what I can. He's the much more chill kind of guy. And so that led to us butting heads, because I was like, well, you don't care enough to know more. And he's like, you're so psychotic, you're going to drive us crazy. You're like, you need to relax. and it took some real learning how to do that well together, which was very hard. And especially because we're trying to figure that out while we're under this hugely stressful condition. So it's a really, you know, it's like parenting through stress and chronic illness. It was really a stressful time.
And what is your husband's name, Megan?
Oh, Scott.
Scott. So
Yes.
for you and Scott, even though you handle things very differently, the feelings that you both were sharing were very similar. And being able to identify, hey, I'm scared too. I don't know what to do either. I have so many questions, but yet you recognize we are so different in how we handle things.
Right.
For me, kind of interestingly enough, my husband, I love him to death. My husband's name is Jack. His coping skill is denial, and my husband is a surgeon. And my experience was, at the time, so much pain in the hospital with neurologists, and this neurologist looked at me, and I just said, I want a surgeon's name. I'm done. I can't handle this. And they said, oh, a surgeon won't see you for 6 months. And I said, I'm not going to make it 6 months. And so for me, I booked an appointment with a surgeon by myself. He actually worked with my husband. I go to the appointment and he says, hey, where's Jack? And I said, he's working. And he said, well, if my wife were contemplating brain surgery, she would make me come with her. And I'm like, okay, good for you. What do you do for me?
Moving on.
And then when I went home and I told my husband, hey, look, I'm having the surgery, then he said, okay, then I want you to, see this person. And, that's what we did. But it was definitely this, I felt so alone, right then. And you just want someone to understand what I'm feeling. What am I going through? I'm not alone in this. So it's taken me a lot of time to recognize, just because he might be in this denial doesn't mean he doesn't feel, the same way. He didn't like seeing me in pain either. He just couldn't fix it. Some of us are fixers.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, and sometimes we can't fix this.
Yeah.
and so that creates, dissension in the relationship. And then how do I handle, not communicating? Well, I shut down, or I take charge, or whatever it is that I do.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, we got through that, and we're able, you just learn a little bit more about each other.
Mhm.
And even back, Allie, I'm so interested in, the relationship with Danny. And, when he makes that decision, like, okay, we're going to the hospital. And, that part of you is like, he understands me, he knows me, we're on the same page. Yeah, then you talk about, if it's sunny outside and I'm sorry, I can't go outside, how is he able to say to you, how he feels?
So how is he conveying that to me, or sorry?
I guess, for him, let's say he wants to go out and, and hey, I'm sorry that you can't, or, it might not be good for you. I'd like to take some time to go outside. I mean, is he able to kind of come in from his place of not having a chronic illness? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there will be times where, like he plays golf, so maybe we look at the weather for the weekend. Okay, maybe one day we're gonna hike, or maybe one day he's gonna go play golf, and it's kind of like, okay, what day is better for Allie to go outside? He's gotten so good that he looks at the wind speed, and he was like, this past weekend, he was like, Saturday is 1 mile per hour wind higher than Sunday, so we'll hike Sunday. Yeah, it's definitely a balance. I mean, again, I feel bad sometimes that I can't, like, that what I have stops us from doing things, but at the same time, I think it's also brought us a lot closer, and taught us a lot. We always say, like, we got through my last surgery, was the only surgery that him and I were together for. And that was still to this day one of the hardest things I have ever done. And he was with me. He came out to where my surgeon was. It was not local. Him and my mom came out, and that was, he proved himself there, 110% supportive. It was a great learning experience, and that experience made it into our wedding vows. So.
So I have another question that, let's see. Is Danny able to, like, if you guys go out and, the wind kicks up and all of a sudden you have to call it a day. So for you, are you able to, because for me that, what comes up for me is, and some of the things I experienced is it sent me into my shame that, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm not enough. And I just kind of shrink back and, climb inside myself. And what is that like for you? Are you able to kind of recognize what your shame is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely get frustrated with myself, and I'll say it to him, Danny. I'll be like, I feel like I'm just throwing a pity party for myself sometimes, because I get frustrated that, again, I can't change this, and that we have to stop doing whatever we were doing because of my pain, or maybe we're not able to do something because of my pain. But again, I think that's part of the balance of, okay, we can't do this, but we can do something else. Or
Okay.
I think it's also just marriage. Like, it's a balance.
Right.
No marriage is going to be perfect, and no relationship, whether it be spouse or whether it be your child, it's a balance, a give and take with everything. And I'm sure you found that before Katie Rose got sick, right?
Yeah, there's always some wheel coming off the wagon, some way, somewhere. And this was a huge one that was, life changing for her and for us. But yeah, it's learning how to see his strengths in the middle of it, as well as my strengths in the middle of it. And to understand that just because I'm not like him doesn't mean that I'm wrong or bad.
Right.
It just means I'm different than him. And honestly, it's good. One of us had to be the researcher and the other person had to pay for all of it and be, doing different things. It worked well, the two of us together. And the same, we've got two daughters. So Katie, we've got Katie who was walking this path of trigeminal neuralgia, and she has a sister who's 2 years younger. And so trying to work with the two of them and not leave Lydia out, because she wasn't the one with pain. And, not ignoring her strengths, her needs, her part in the family too. It's a challenging balance.
And so listening to you guys, is there any acknowledgement that I say, hey, thank you so much for how you're handling this? Or, Danny, how are you doing? Or, thank you so much for, being understanding when we had to call it a day on our hiking trip. Kind of that affirmation too, that what you are doing for me or what you're doing for our daughter is being acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tend to get into, I'm kind of a blamer, so I tend to get into blaming or expecting my husband to kind of fix things for me or handle things for me instead of recognizing he can't. So I have to be able to recognize what he can and can't do, and then what I can and can't do. But the things he does do, I'm able to articulate and acknowledge and thank him for that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's really important to do for all of us, because I think, like we said at the beginning, that hopelessness and that uselessness that couldn't help Katie, he was feeling the same thing, and
Right.
he was also feeling that from me in
Mhm.
the situation, how damaging that would be. So I was not always good at this, I will admit, because we were like in crisis mode all over the place. But especially as we were coming out of it, to look back and say, you made it happen. Wherever it was I wanted to fly and see a doctor, like he was supposed to be in China for work that week. Well, he didn't go. He stayed home and he got us on that plane and we went, and that was the way it was. And the ways that he did to really name them, to call out, like, this is how I saw you sacrifice for us and make it happen. I think that's really important for us to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very good.
I think it's also important. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
It's a little unnerving, when you're trying to.
Oh, it has to be now. No.
Right.
Yeah. And it was interesting because this isn't husband and wife, but with Katie, at the time she was very young. As she's gotten older, she's 19 now. And it's been an interesting evolution. Like, I've had to step back from her healthcare, right? And I steered so much of it for so long. And for me to step back and be like, no, this is your body, your decisions. You gotta go talk to that doctor without me standing right there. It's okay,
Mhm.
But for her also, that she has now, probably about when she was 17 or so, she actually said to me one day, I don't know what we were doing, and she said, if it wasn't for my TN, I don't think that you and I would be as close as we are.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I would never, ever want this to be how it happened, right? But she's able to look at it now and say, it changed our relationship as a family. We became very cemented together. And like, it's us against the world, and we will help each other out and support each other.
Mhm.
And even she's a teenager, can see that and acknowledge it, which I think is great.
That's pretty awesome. You
Yeah.
had mentioned too, like a lot of the time you and your husband were in the struggle, in the crisis. And so that amplifies things, so much more. And so being able to look back and say, this is where we've been and this is what we've gone through and where we are. I can't imagine just to those moms out there now, moms and dads both, with kids that are in crisis mode, because when you're in crisis mode, everything is just so heightened and feelings are just starting this and we don't know what to do and there's so much confusion that being able to say, this is what it was like for us. This is this is kind of where we're at and how we do that. And honestly, even seeing some fruit from what Katie Rose has gone through.
Right.
I really value our relationship, Mom. I'm not sure we would have had that.
Right. Not the way that it is. Yeah. And I'll give a shout out. We actually have a Facebook group. It's called it's FUTN. Yeah, we did that. Families Understanding Trigeminal Neuralgia, and it's for the parents of kids with this condition, so that we all can get in touch with each other. And so, one of our admin posted today, how are you doing with the coronavirus and everything that's going? How are your kids? Your kids are now had their whole schedule turned upside down. How are you dealing? So that we have our people and we can find our people. So.
Yeah.
You were going to say something.
Allie?
Yeah. I'm sorry. What? Yeah, I don't know. I almost want to talk about some of I just saw a comment, someone saying that it's good to see that relationships can survive this. And I think it's really, really hard. I mean, relationships take work no matter what. And I think one of the biggest things for me was open communication. So we talk about the affirmation of feelings, but really when I'm in pain, I need you to do this. I think something early on that my husband and I talked about, what do I want you to do when I'm in pain? And we have different levels of pain. Sometimes I just have it's just a worse day and it's like my baseline, but a little bit higher. So he can tell. But then when I'm having that huge major flare up, what does that look like for your spouse? Because I hear all of the time that, well, my wife doesn't know what to do. My husband doesn't know what to do. And then it ends up just arguments because you are in that crisis situation. And so your emotions are heightened. So I think something that's really important, and this would apply to for children and families as well. When the patient is in pain, you need to have a plan before. What do you want your family around you to do? Do you want them to touch you? Do you want them to talk to you? Do you want them to give you heat, ice? Do you want them to turn the TV on, the lights on? What do you want? And granted, it could be different every single time, but at least give the guidance. So Megan, as a mom, you know what your daughter would want. Okay, maybe she always wanted, I don't know, she always wanted a certain stuffed animal.
No lights, no sound, certain pillow, certain stuffed animals, a blanket, a box of tissues, a notepad, and a pen. Like we had a list. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as soon as it started, we gathered it all up.
Yeah.
Have you?
And I know.
I was just thinking of a survival kit, almost like a little survival kit.
And it went with us in the car. It went everywhere with us because you never know what's going to happen,
Yeah. And then when it comes down to, okay, if there's young kids, if the parent is the patient, you have to talk to the kids about it. I know a patient, when her daughter was born, she, I think, had a sticker on the side of her shoulder that her daughter couldn't touch or couldn't kiss. So when mommy had the sticker there, she couldn't touch that side of her face, because how do you tell a 1, 2, 3-year-old that they can't hug mommy and daddy? They can't touch their face. They're kids. They don't know that. So again, just my point there was communication. So communication to your spouse, to your family, to your child, what you want done, because then it doesn't end up that it's a blow up. Well, you didn't do this when I was in pain, and then you're throwing it back at them. And again, just keeping it clear what people want and the open lines of communication.
I think it's important that the caregiver is honest in that conversation too. Like, this is how I feel when this happens, and I want to do this. Is that right? Should I do that or should I not? Yeah, but doing that when the pain is not happening. In that conversation, so that you can all have a sane conversation. And it may not, once it starts, it doesn't always play out the way you think it was going to, but at least you had a conversation and a starting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something that I do use with clients, with couples especially, is, it's all kind of going into individually, how I feel. So if you're having an attack or an episode and you kind of take care of yourself first. First of all, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm wanting, and then this is what I need from you. Now, sometimes with couples, I say that's what we have to be able to do is know those things. This is how I feel. This is what I want, or this is what I want, and this is what I need from you. Now, if you're having facial pain, you can't really talk and say, I want this. So like we've talked about before, if I have a plan, or I have a plan able to clearly say, this is what, I want, and this is what I need from you. So to have that and talk about that beforehand.
Right. Right.
So it's definitely a journey.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
There she is.
I want to tell you, thank you so much, ladies. This has been wonderful. Janet Ditzler, thank you so
you.
much. Allie and Megan, you're wonderful. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to ask you all if you would be open to any follow-up questions from our viewers. If
Yeah.
that was okay, I would email those to you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Don't forget, our upcoming Facebook Lives are on April 22nd and May 5th. You'll be able to find information on this feed. And if you have not already signed up for our emails, please contact me at info@tna-support.org. And ladies, thank you again. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it. And I think we started something really good here. So have a good night. Everybody stay healthy, stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.